I am good to go, bud.
Okay.
Good to go.
All right. It is wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out to talk about the very important work you're doing, especially in these modern times.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Let's begin with what we kind of touched on before we officially got on, which is COVID and the pandemic, which really threw a whole different light on mental health in this country and the world. How did you get through that 2020 time period, and how has it radiated into your world in 2025?
yeah, so in 2020, it was tough. We had sold our house. We were trying to move to upstate New York. The entire world shut down, so we couldn't move, right? And I am a complete extrovert, so COVID to me felt like hell. Um, couldn't get out there. I couldn't hug anybody. I couldn't go out to parties. And thankfully for me, my wife was really good about making sure we had something to do in the house every day. We were still living in Florida, so I could go out at least to the pool, go walk around my backyard. um, but we were on a mission. We had a house of 30 years, so we had to pack up and get ready to move. But I know for other friends of mine, it was really a difficult time for them because now everybody was at home all at the same time and didn't couldn't escape, right? And um, I know that coming out of COVID, there were several of my friends that ended up getting divorced. The kids really suffered, and then even moving up here. I, okay, I'm telling you, the best time to move is during a pandemic because there were absolutely zero cars on the road.
Yes.
So I could like drive 90. But getting up here, I didn't know a soul when we moved here, and it was hard to get to meet people, and it it kind of tugged at my emotional heartstring. But then we have Zoom, and so I made it a point to connect with people every single day, whether it was just to say hi or kind of how's your mental health going, and then pivot to 2022. And then my mental health really tanked, like super tanked. And then moved to today, and I'm the happiest I've been in over 20 years.
Wow. So let's connect some more dots here. Let's get to the exact handle of what you do. I know you have an award-winning podcast, but you're a mental health advocate. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day, and kids always have a way of pulling the truth out. One of the kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
I'm out there changing the world every single day on how the world sees mental health and normalizing it so that when you come to school and you're not feeling good in your head, that you're not ashamed to ask for help, that you know that you're in a safe space. You know that no matter what you say or do, nobody's going to criticize you. That's what I'm trying to put out into the world, not just for the kids, but for the adults out there,
Yeah,
because having mental health issues is a scary place to be.
yeah, for sure. What did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream job?
My dream job was going to be a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom was a nurse, and she was just awesome. Everybody loved my mom. My mom was like, our house was the place to be. And I remember how rewarding it was for her to help her patients. And my dream was to be a doctor, but like the math skills were not there, and I kind of checked out. So,
So talk to me a little bit about, you said you were born and raised in Colorado?
yep,
Okay. Take me back to your childhood and how did you get to this point where you have this light that you're putting out for mental health and you're trying to help people get to better places? What were the foundational elements that were planted that have eventually been harvested and grown into your career today?
it was my mom. My mom was the kindest soul in the world.
Yeah.
Um, she just helped so many people, and she had a big heart. My mom, like me, we're both Leos, We wear our heart on our sleeve, always out there taking care of the world. And she was like larger than life. She was an extrovert. She was an empath. She passed that all on to me. My mom was like the life of the party, and she just wanted to make sure that people were okay. I had several friends that were at our house every single day because things at home were horrible. And, my mom would just bring them in. It was like we had the best house in the neighborhood. And it was through her and seeing life through her lens and knowing like all the hardships that my mom had to go through, even, close to when my mom passed away. My mom had been diagnosed with leukemia in August of 1996, and she died exactly 6 months later. And even going through that, like she was still had this positive light around her. Like she just wanted to make sure everybody else was okay, and it really carried through me for like the rest of my life. And my mom's been gone since 1997.
Wow.
There's not a day that I don't think about her.
Yeah.
But like when I'm going through my really hard days, um, even on that horrible Christmas day in 2022, I think it was my mom's voice telling me that it was going to be okay.
Yeah. It's interesting, thinking and about mental health and where we are as human beings and how much we've evolved, but how much we still how much farther we have to go. I was just watching a documentary on Sally Ride last night. And this is one of the most decorated astronauts of all time. She had to hide her life and marry a guy, couldn't come out and talk about who she was in reality, came from a household that didn't express feelings. And I'm just sitting here and I'm looking at how positive and strong she always was about everything, but how much our society talks about being so benevolent and open and ready to welcome everybody, but we do anything but. It just, why would we not have an epidemic of mental health issues that are going on every day in this country? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. And now more than ever, like the world is on fire, is literally on fire. And I will say that like over the last 2 years, I've seen it a lot on LinkedIn where companies are really starting to tune in
Hmm.
on their employees' mental health. Because you know what? If everybody's checked out, it's going to affect your bottom line one way or another. But, you know, I would like to see that move more into like the school system and to like nursing homes and things like that. I mean, we all have messy minds, right? But what is really sad is that for men, the men in today's world, there's still so much shame about talking about your mental health when
Yeah.
you shouldn't, right? Like you shouldn't be shamed for asking for help. You shouldn't see it as a sign of weakness. I will tell you what happens when you don't take care of your mental health. I am the poster child for it. I, you know, I'm an extrovert and I'm an empath. I took care of everybody else's stuff. I did not take care of me. And I was, raised in a generation where you don't talk about your mental health ever, right? Like for me, though, I didn't understand it was a mental health issue. I just knew that something was going on inside my head,
Yeah.
and it was terrifying.
The one thing that helps us get to that healthy place or having healthy outlets, things that the way, whether it's writing or maybe painting, art, podcasting, things that will allow you to have an outlet. What has always been the saving grace for you that's allowed you to keep that light on, no matter how dim it got?
Over the last 2.5 years, it's been this podcast.
Yeah.
Um, Prior to that was soaking up all the energy from everybody else. I was everybody's little energy. Whenever they were on a bad day, I was the one to make them laugh. But when it came time for me and I had my mental health breakdown, I was wonderfully surprised by the number of people that picked me back up when I couldn't stand up on my own.
You know, let's get into a micro kind of view because we're in a podcast now talking about podcasts. what a wonderful world of human beings and to give you hope that humans are doing the right thing, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you kind of like it's almost like you kind of crawl into this like bubble of a different kind of reality when you get in here because the media and everybody else makes it seem like we're so different. We're so vastly one side or the other. But at the end of the day, when you get in this world of podcasting, it's this therapeutic world of gray area that allows you to celebrate our humanness and who we are and be you and be who you want to be. It's just such a great place.
it is. The greatest thing about podcasting is that we have no geographic boundaries, right?
Yeah.
So our shows can be heard across around the world, and we get to share those messages of hope and the messages of, it's okay to ask for help, and that we're all in this like world together, and we get to touch hearts that we wouldn't ever be able to like physically touch, right?
Yeah.
We touch them through their ears and there's other senses. For us, we do strictly audio, and we will have people reach back out to us and say, I listened to that episode 3 times.
Wow.
And we had somebody else reach back out to us and say, we saved their life,
Wow.
because we talk about the messiness of mental health. And we've had kids as young as 18 on the show and adults as old as 80.
Yeah.
And they're sharing their truth. And that's so important. None of us were taught in school how to deal with our mental health. Nobody. We sort of touched on emotions like Johnny's mad, April's sad, but we didn't get into that really tough stuff, like when you feel so alone and, finding out that, as kids are empaths and they're taking on everybody else's pain, but, just marching around the world like everything's okay. If you're doing that right now, if you are an extrovert and you have your mask on, take it off because the only person that's going to hurt is you.
Yeah. That's the beauty of what you said about the audio only podcasts and how people get weaned on your voice. Like the old journalists like Barbara Walters, whenever she came on, you just knew, right? You were going to be instantly comforted, or if Tom Brokaw was going to deliver the message. Um, so let me ask you this. What was the first podcast you got addicted to? The first voice that you were like, I got to hear that voice. I can't wait for next week or the next episode.
You are so gonna laugh. So there is a podcast that's put on by Lisa Haley and Kate Monig. It's called the Pants Podcast, and it's these two lesbian actors that were on the L Word like over 20 years ago. But they're just their candor and their laughter, and it I don't know, it kind of made the bad days a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Laughter is a natural healer. So if you get a chance to laugh
Uh-huh.
and you're having a bad day, just it's a game changer. And
Yeah.
so that was one of the first ones. And then the second one I really got hooked on was with Mel Robbins, and the third one was Mayim Bialik. Because they're out there sharing their truth
Yeah.
and like not ashamed to do it.
That's the thing that's so cool about this world of podcasting. When I was growing up, you had very limited voices. I mean, you had your major news channels, and then you would have an NPR, and then you would have the far right would have their kind of thing going on. But there's so much now that you can go out and literally find. I have a jazz radio show, so there's a lot of people, lots of musicians really enjoy listening to it, which is wild. Because I think sometimes I feel like I'm in a vacuum doing this. You're just kind of right. You're just kind of in this space, and when people are like, "Wow, that was really important," I listen to it. I'm like, "What? You listen to what?" So it's fun. It's really fun that we all get to kind of have these voices. Like we all have these wonderful transistor radios from Radio Shack. We finally got tapped in, and we can like reach people. But it's great when you actually hear back, and especially with what you're doing, it's so essential because I think about when Robin Williams committed suicide and how big of a deal that was, and how so many people, the national debate was triggered, and people were like, well, why didn't he just get over it? Why didn't we know about it? Well, it's because it's really it's a disease. It's something that's not like I had a bad day. It's something more than that. And I think COVID finally made it something that was accepted, normalized it, so to speak.
You bet. And the thing like with Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain and even Twitch, look at them. They were all extroverts,
Hmm.
right? They're we are all taught to put on a happy smile and just move on through life. But for and I can see where they got to that point where they took their life. There's so much stigma out there. There's so much bad press about people that take their life from by suicide. But there's so much that goes into that. There's internal factors, there's external factors. It's mental, it's physical, and the saying is if just be kind because you actually have no idea what's going on behind the face. Uh, like for me, like I showed up every single day to work. I was smiling, I was laughing. Um, but I got off work or I got off the camera and like that negative self-talk just kept coming back.
Yeah,
And thankfully now here in the US and also in Canada, there's that 988 crisis hotline. And it's not just for suicide ideation, it's for anybody in crisis.
yeah,
And so like if you're embarrassed to talk to a friend or talk to your family member or talk to your husband or wife, coworker, pick up the phone and call 988.
yeah,
They're there, they will save your life. They saved mine.
yeah. Um, so let me ask you this. Actually, let me just present something real quick to you right
Okay.
now. So when I was a kid, I was really short in high school and didn't have any real baseball talent. I always wanted to be a baseball player, but it just wasn't going to happen. So I was a runner, and my hero was Dwight Gooden, the pitcher for the New York Mets. And I am waging a campaign right now to get him in the Hall of Fame. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because this whole cancel culture is just spun out of control. And I think we need to reverse it and pull it back and recognize people that have redeemed their existence. And he's done that. When we speak about mental health, he went through a lot of problems off the field. And I had no idea when I was a kid that I was going to latch onto someone that I would call a hero that is as wonderful as he is. And he's gone through all of these different trials and tribulations to get to a better place. And it's amazing. I think we just need to get to a point in our society, instead of applauding these downfalls that we do all over the place, where we look at these people that have gone through things that genuinely only really hurt them, not the public or us, just perception of it, and just celebrate these people that have redeemed themselves, like Doc Gooden, and say, you know what? It's time for us to celebrate the people that have gone over and have rectified their past and made it to a better place.
I I believe that so much because you know what? We all do stupid stuff, right? We all have crazy lives, but to be canceled because of like something you maybe did in your 20s, uh, you know, but you reinvent yourself and you try and self-correct. And I think that people that do that should be applauded, right? It's not easy. I went through 2.5 years of really intense therapy to come back out on the other side.
Yeah.
And for those people, like you should celebrate them as a story of hope, right? Because they didn't cave, they didn't let the mental illness take over their life. They decided that they wanted to make a change, and they did. And they're out there making the world a better place just because they're here.
You know, it's interesting in this realm of podcasting when you walk into an interview or in a situation, and you never know how it's going to unfold. And it's a real two-way avenue. You can have an effect on them, they have an effect on you and your listeners. What was an episode that you went in and it unexpectedly turned into something magical, something much deeper that's definitely penetrated who you are as a human and what you do behind the microphone? Did you have a moment like that?
I did. It was like maybe, I think it was season 3. A very dear friend of mine, her name on the podcast was Bookie, but her real name was Liz. She had terminal breast cancer and she came onto our show and it turned out to be something way different than we had anticipated. And I walked away from that episode with some really important life lessons. And I carry that through every day that I do the podcast. Unfortunately, she passed away a month after we released her episode.
Wow.
But the lessons that she taught us in that episode were invaluable. Like, don't have a bucket list, live for the moment.
Hmm.
Make sure you have your affairs in order, even if you're in your 20s. Have your stuff in order and, just take life and run with it because you're never guaranteed another day. And that sat with me it still sits with me. And that was in 2023.
There was a jazz singer in Kansas City. Her name was Molly Hammer, and she passed away. She had a reoccurring cancer battle that she was going through. And I always remember I had a couple interviews with her, and she passed during the pandemic. And it was just like she just got to the point where she said, yes, there's so many little spokes of light that she spoke about in relationship to like living. And she traveled a lot and did so many things after that first cancer battle. But it is amazing how much they can, even to this day, affect our lives. So of all of so when you look at the timeline of your life and everything that you've overcome and evolved to at this point and at this happy place, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I'm proud of myself for picking up the phone on Christmas Day and dialing 988. I am so grateful to be alive every single day,
Yeah.
that I faced my demons that I didn't even know were demons. Because for me, like, I didn't understand what was going on inside me. I couldn't find my voice and I couldn't find my footing. And I didn't know how to tell people what was going on because I didn't understand it. But that is my proudest moment.
And I think that's the thing too. There's a lot of people that go through their lives and maybe don't recognize that they have problems or there was trauma in their early part of their lives. You know, that whole thing, we get kind of insulated by media and TV and movies and this everybody smiling kind of a thing. But what would you say to people out there that just have this gnawing feeling or they're curious or what would you say to someone to say maybe it's time to look into something?
I don't take anything at face value. I take a little bit of time to see kind of where they are in their life, right? Did something really horrible just happen? Are they having financial crisis? You have to watch and learn, and you have to be very careful on how you approach somebody. But you can, ask them a question that they honestly have to answer. Don't ask them, "Hey, how's your day going?" Because my typical response was like, "Hey, I'm living the dream," but I really wasn't. Ask them a question like, "How's your mental health today?" That one question could save their life
Yeah.
because then you can kind of gauge where they are. And if it's somebody that, is kind of a loner, maybe an introvert, they don't really want to engage with people, they may like live in rural America, encourage them to contact 988. It's free. It's anonymous. They'll get you some resources that can kind of help you make it from that minute to that next hour to that next day. And just remember, you are loved, wanted, and needed in this world. And for me, I was within 20 minutes of taking my life.
Wow.
Um, but lean in on your friends. There are signs like people start to check out. They start saying things like "I want to die." They start to just kind of pull into themselves. Even as an extrovert, I did, but nobody even really noticed because they were just so used to like me being the happy-go-lucky class clown.
Yeah.
But you know, and be kind. All right, like I said, a lot's going on right now. Just be kind to people. If you don't have anything nice to say, remember what your mom used to say to you. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Walk away.
Yeah. That's totally true. So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of your listeners, everyone that knows you, that's known you in a professional capacity, that you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a ray of hope. I mean, I've been through a lot, and I'm not afraid to share my story. And I still keep giving out to the world. and I received back. It's kind of funny since since January of this year. I quit my job and decided to go work for myself, and like all that goodness I've put out into the world is now flooding back to me, and it's a little weird. So if you've never like dealt with anything like this before, it's a little weird coming back. But I now see me the way everybody else has seen me. I'm a giver. I'm a Leo with a huge heart. I just want to see the world be a better place, especially for those of us that have mental illness. I don't want us to be ashamed of what's going on in our head, because we're still productive members of society.
Yeah, totally agree. So if anyone wants to tune into the podcast, they have questions, any of the other good parts and works that you're doing in your life, where do they go? Where's the best place?
There's two places. You can either go to our podcast website, which is goesoninourheads.net, or if you want to learn more about my company, you can go out to schosersolutions.com.
Okay. Gretchen, what a joy. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for your story. This has been delightful. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. What an honor.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Looking to get new clients to your business through cold calling or email marketing? At Agency Y, they envision a world in which small and big companies have equal chances to win new customers in the market. Their purpose is to bring parity and reduce the gap between large and small firms with the help of their cold calling and cold email marketing services. Use the code Joe Dimino 10 at www.agencyyy.org/coldcallingjoe.php or www.agencyyyy.org/emailmarketingjoe.php to get 10% off your first order. This is Joe Dimino of Neon Jazz and Famous Interviews, and I stand behind Agency Y to meet your business dreams.